other nominations?
I know Ron really wanted it, but I'm going to have to swing my support. I'm just telling you, Ron, it seems that the votes aren't there. So.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is carried. We have a prayer for guidance by Mr. Tuttle.
Yes, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you and we are mindful of the so many blessings that you have bestowed upon us. We thank you for this day, for the opportunity to be here this evening, to spend this time in your service, and we just pray for your wisdom over this meeting, that you would allow us to make decisions that are in the best interest of the community. Father God, we thank you for those who work to serve the public in this community. We thank you for the police and the fire and the first responders, and we just pray that you would watch over them and protect them as they go about their responsibilities. Pray as well for those who are less fortunate, those who are without a roof over their heads or food on their table, and we just pray that you would help to meet their needs as well. We ask that you would watch over us, guide our decisions, guide our actions, that everything we would do would be honoring and glorifying unto you. We ask all this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Let's stand and please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The record will indicate that all members are present with the exception of Dr. Moore as previously indicated. There's the approval of the agenda for this evening. A motion would be in order.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, the same. That's carried. This evening, we do have the privilege of sharing in the Michigan Heart Life Saving Awards. And that's why we have this great group of folks here tonight. And so we're going to turn that over to them, and they'll share those awards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim Hahn. I'm with the Michigan Region of the American Heart Association, Regional Faculty and Quality Assurance, Quality Improvement Director. I'd like to take you back to November 11, about 12:20 in the afternoon, when the Grand Rapids Auto Auction had just finished selling cars and was having lunch. All of a sudden, the people having lunch noticed that one of the gentlemen appeared to be falling asleep, snoring. But before long, somebody realized that it was a heart attack and not somebody falling asleep. So the people at the Grand Rapids Auto Auction jumped into action, having just taken a CPR first aid class not less than a month before. One called 911, two gentlemen laid the gentleman on the floor, another one ran for the AED, and within 3 minutes we had Ottawa County Sheriff officers there. Within 4 minutes we had Life Ambulance there, and everybody did exactly what they needed to do. Now, if you'll allow me, I'd like to read from the Sheriff's Department report for just a minute. It says that approximately 12:25, a report was made to the 911 Central Dispatch in reference to a medical at Grand Rapids Auto Auction. It was a 74-year-old male, unconscious and not breathing. The unit, Daniel Fetkenhauer, and I apologize if I pronounced that name wrong, was dispatched to the call and arrived in less than 3 minutes. He observed 3 employees of the Grand Rapids Auto Auction performing CPR on the 74-year-old male and noted the AED was being utilized. He quickly stabilized the patient, hooking him up to his heart monitor and establishing a positive airway. Sergeant Steginga and Deputy Jones arrived a short time later and assisted. Sergeant Steginga took over the airway by utilizing oxygen, a bag valve mask, and the other 2 deputies started an IV. The employees at the Grand Rapids Auto Auction were able to use the AED and shock the patient to restart his heart. As I mentioned earlier, they had just taken a CPR class. There were 3 people mentioned specifically in the report, but there were a total of 12 of the employees at the auto auction that did everything from moving cars to let the Sheriff's Department people in and taking care of Mr. Hookwater's wife. And the people from the auto auction, I don't know if they're here tonight, they were hoping to be Daniel Metzger, Deborah Dotson, and Eric Clompiers. Again, the Sheriff's Department officers who I know are here in the audience. The American Heart Association will be presenting them awards. We had hoped to have them here tonight, but because of the holidays, they have not made it from Dallas yet, so we will make sure that they get them. Deputy Daniel Finkenhauer, Deputy Jeff Jones, and Sergeant Jeff Steginga. Also, 2 Life Ambulance employees, Rick Bremer and Pat Hatch, are also in the audience, along with their supervisors. And way back in the corner, I don't know why he hooked back up in the corner, but it's Mr. Dale Hookwater, the 74-year-old gentleman who survived that. And
Why don't you stand, Mr. Hookwater? Let us. And I'd also like to ask the gentlemen that you mentioned who were there, the first responder folks, if you would stand so we can give you a hand as well. From Life Ambulance and Sheriff. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just real quick, it's been an honor to be here in Georgetown. We have the best people working here between Life, between the Sheriff's Office, and the fire. I mean, we all get together and work together very well, and we're very, very dedicated to our work. I do want to say one thing. I know he's going to hate me for saying this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Dan Feckenauer is just celebrating 20 years with the Sheriff's Office. Of those 20 years, he has spent them in the paramedic unit in Georgetown. So he has saved many lives. However, he has never received a life-saving award. This will be his first. So it's a special thing for him. So just a little shout out to him as well.
Good. Dan, stand again, would you please, Dan? I know that we would all agree that we are blessed in Georgetown Township with our first responders. And so thank you very much for the service you provide and the lives that you have saved. It's an awesome responsibility. We realize not everyone can do it, but thank you. It's very much appreciated. And I know other board members would concur with that as well, and they may want to, if anyone would like to say something, they may certainly feel free to do that. Any board member want to make additional comments?
Well, I'd just like to say that I'd agree with what Rich said. We do have the greatest fire department, the greatest police department, and first responders. I had a niece that was in a car accident a year ago, and she was rescued too with the jaws of life, and she's doing very well. So I can agree with that totally. So thank you very much.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Well, thank you again very much. And Mr. Hookwater, blessings to you. How are you feeling?
I'm doing pretty well. It's pretty things. I've got a pacemaker now and defib installed. I want to thank these guys for the job they did. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for these people at the auction that jumped right in, and then the ambulance people and the sheriff's department. I mean, I wouldn't be here. So I want to voice my sincere thanks and appreciation. I second this. This is the best people in the world. No doubt in my mind. Thank you so much, guys.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. Some of the people from the auto auction here who were also there, would you folks just stand so we can, because you were all trained in CPR, so thank you for your quick work. Thank you all so much. That was wonderful. We have the auto account. Oh, excuse me. Yes, I was just going to say before we do our next, if you would like to come forward, but all of you who are here for this award, you can leave following this. You don't have to stay for the whole meeting. So. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we'll let them in. We'll let them in.
It's a great way to
Well,
start.
those of you who are here for that presentation, you may feel free to leave if you'd like to. Our next item on the agenda is the Ottawa County Treasurer's presentation. Mr. Brad Slaz here, and he's the Ottawa County Treasurer, and he is going to make a presentation to us this time. Brad, welcome.
Thank you very much. I was kind of disappointed that you let everybody go. That would be the biggest audience I've had so far as I went around.
You should have told me that before. I would have kept him here until after you were finished.
Okay. And besides that, to follow up on a thing like that, I mean, that was emotional, and now you're going to get this. I'm sorry about that. You're definitely going downhill. But I do want to thank you for allowing me to come tonight and just share what I'm trying to do is just bring ideas, information from the County Treasurer's Office out to the boards and city commissions and things like that, so that you just have a different idea, maybe a little broader knowledge, especially about stuff that goes on in the County Treasurer's Office. Probably anything that you would have wanted to know, or I'm going to tell you tonight, Dan would have known because of his multiple years as a treasurer, but maybe I can give you a new twist, so we'll see. He's probably the only person in the audience that won't learn anything today. But, so if you could go to the first one, let's start with tax roll. The tax roll is really built by the assessor in your township. So the assessor builds a tax roll. Once it's in place and working, then Carol takes over as the person who is now has to bill for taxes and collect for taxes, and she then continues to move that forward, and a year later I end up with that tax roll. The interesting thing to me that I didn't know when I came to the county treasurer's seat is that the tax roll needs to stay open for 20 years. So not only does it have to be able to be adjusted for the next couple years, I have to maintain it for 20 years open and available to be changed. We actually have to be able to go back 20 years. I've never had to do that since I've been in office, but it is possible to go back up to 20 years and make adjustments to the tax roll. Carol collects for the first year here in the township, and after that first year of collection, then I get it, if they haven't paid, I get it as a delinquent tax. And then I'm responsible for the next 2 years of maintaining that tax roll. We do not collect personal property taxes. Carol gets responsibility to do that. So that stays at the local unit, but the property taxes, the real property taxes come to me. So if you go to the next one, this just gives you one of the reasons why I'm excited to be in Ottawa County versus any place else. You notice that on the far left side, 2008 to 2014 goes across. Far left scale going up and down is the number of delinquent properties. You can see in 2009 that I bought in from the local units about 7,400 parcels across the county. And you can see that in 2014 we only bought in, that's the purple bar, I was only required to buy in about 4,100 parcels. So significant number of parcels that we're not dealing with from a delinquent side across the county. And it is in large measure that we have a county that's got an economic base that's really doing the right stuff. So we've got people that are employed that maybe have a second job that they didn't have at a point in time, and so they couldn't afford to pay their taxes. Scale on the right-hand side is the blue line, and that shows you the number of dollars that I have to use to buy in on any given year. And so at the height of our recession, 2009, I spent over $15 million on one day. I had to have the cash available to buy in all the delinquent taxes from all the local units. And at that point, I want to just talk about how that $15 million is there and in place for us to be able to use that. A number of years ago, the county treasurer, Mary Richardson, prior to me, and the county board got together and said, we need to have a delinquent tax fund that enables us to do this, to buy them, rather than to go out and bond for those delinquent taxes, because that's the two ways. You either have cash or you go out and bond for it. And the county board decided that they would allow the treasurer to set that up, so we have that fund in place. But if you were to go to probably over a third of the counties, there is no money in their delinquent tax fund. So they're out, even though they've got the fund, it has a zero balance in it or less. the county board is spending whatever they've got in that fund. So there isn't any dollars there. They're having to borrow anyway, bond and borrow for those dollars. We in Ottawa County do not have to do that. Our board has said, you know what? We understand that those dollars are there. They're there for a purpose. We're going to leave them alone. And so I just want to say that I think that's a really important thing. It's this whole Ottawa County mindset that says we do better with cash than we do with borrowing. And so it's just that kind of a mindset. So anyway, those dollars are there, and we invest them and continue to try and grow them. And through the delinquent tax process, and I'll show you in a couple minutes where the dollars come back from, but not only do I collect them, but we collect from those people that are delinquent, but I also am able to grow those funds through investing. Georgetown Township, this is what I actually bought in 2011. The top set is 2011, 2012. How many delinquent parcels were there in Georgetown Township? After a year, so I've had it, after that first year, it's the number of forfeitures. That's the next phraseology. Forfeiture is the second year that I hold it. You can see that the beginning of that second year, there were only 63 and 64 a year later. So that's the process. My job is to try and collect all of those so that we don't foreclose on any. It's a 2-year process, as I said. Here's what I'm required to do by law. So the statute says I have to send out 7 first-class notices. So across that time frame, those 2 years, there's 7 first-class notices that get sent out. And not only are they sent to the person that's on the top person on the deed, but if there's a bank or a mortgage company and a second mortgage company and whatever else might be there, I'm required to send that same amount of notices to every one of those. So it could be multiple 7s as I do that. I'm also, over that 2 years, required to send 3 certified notices. I'm also required to do an actual inspection of the property, be at the home or at the piece of property, and post on that property either to the individual if I can get somebody to come to the door, or if it's just a regular vacant piece of property, I have to pound in a stake and staple information to it about a foreclosure hearing that's going to go on. And so I have to do that to every single place. So this past year, that was about 400 and some during the summer. So we do 400 in about 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. I can get that many done. We have to do a publication in a newspaper. Right now, we're using the Grand Haven Tribune and the Holland Sentinel to do that. It happens in December of every year. It has to be posted 3 weeks in a row. And then I am required to have a circuit court hearing. That's done in Grand Haven. And then if all of those things don't work to be able to get us to the point where we can agree that they're going to pay and that we've got that moving forward, then I actually am required to, by law, to foreclose on a piece of property and take it away from the people. And if we do that, then I have to take it. Right now the law says 2 auctions. There is a law on the governor's desk that may get signed, I don't know where it's at, which would allow only 1 auction possibility. But so potential change in the deal. Thank you. The required fees that go on. So, and let me just ask, Carol, do you, because I don't know, do you guys do partial payments? Do you allow people to come in and do partial payments? Yeah, we do too at the county. Our goal is, how do I reduce this? Because as you start looking at the percentages on this, it's really steep and it really adds up fast. So when I get it from Carol, the day I get it from Carol, we add a 4% administration fee. And then we start every month by adding 1% interest every single month. And that goes on for the first year. And if they don't pay in that first year, so that 63 or 64 that we were just talking about didn't pay in that first year, we go back a whole year and add another 0.5% of interest every single month. So instead of paying 12%, they actually paid 18% for that first year. It's hugely expensive. And then we start adding other fees like the title search fee and forfeiture fees and then site visit fees, publication fees. So it's really expensive. This is the number of foreclosed properties that we actually had in the county over the past few years. You can see that 2008, 9, 10, it was ramping up. 11 came down a little bit. In 2012, you can see that we were at 104. Georgetown Township was responsible for that large little blip in there. That was the behind the ice rink, that condominium project that was there, that 89 parcels that were there. That's them. Otherwise, you can see that we probably would have been fairly flat in that spot. And we're down to 19 that we foreclosed on this year, and we're excited about that. We're headed in the right direction. It's a great thing. That's good, Manette. Thank you. If all of those things don't happen, and we still end up with a property, and once in a while, I still end up with a couple pieces of property out of that. One of the things that we can do is we can move it to the land bank. You guys sit kind of on the edge, and you can hear about Kent County's land bank, and there's maybe some questions about all of the pieces, about how does that work. And so let's not deal with that. Let's deal with Ottawa County's land bank, because it's different. When we set up the land bank in Ottawa County, we said there really is two purposes for the land bank. The first is that we've got property that won't do anything in the market. So the market doesn't want it for some reason. We recently had that. In Holland City, they had a piece of property that had known petroleum spills on it, documented through the DEQ. It had known underground tanks, and they knew they were there, and they'd been there a number of years. Did they have leaks? Nobody knew. There was pumps above the ground. There were other kinds of things on the property. Nobody wanted to buy it. So I took it to auction. It was over an acre. Nobody bought it. So we brought it into the land bank. We're able to do the work to get it cleaned up and then be able to put it back out. It went for $75,000 when I put it back on the market. But they didn't have, the new owner didn't have all of the DEQ issues, so we were able to get it cleaned up. And that's one of our purposes for the land bank, is to clean up property that wouldn't sell on the market. The second is that we really believe that there are opportunities coming in the future someday where we can help with development. The land bank has some other tax advantages that are not there for just like a brownfield. So we think we can partner with some other brownfield kinds of stuff and actually make a difference. So we're hopefully that will be able to do that as well. And the last thing is, if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them, or I'd give them to Dan. And other than that, or give them to Denny. He might be able to answer them too. Any questions I can answer? Otherwise, I'll step out of your way.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you, Brad, for your presentation. Very informative. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming. The next item on our agenda are communications, letters, and reports. Those are received for information to be filed. And then the next item is public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience who would like to address the board. We ask that you come forward and state your name and your address, and then you have 3 minutes to address the board. Denny?
Good evening, Dennis Van Dam. I live on Hidden Forest Drive over in Georgetown Forest, and I'm also one of your county commissioners. Just a couple of real quick things. One is to let you know that as of the first of the year, in addition to being a county commissioner, I've taken on a position with Senator Arlen Meekoff as his district director here in Ottawa County. His Senate leadership responsibilities are likely going to keep him in Lansing more than he would like, and so he wanted to have somebody here in the county to help represent him and deal with issues that come up. So, you know, I know everything's running great here in the township, but if you run into a glitch, I'm a resource and I'm available to you, and, you know, if I can't help you, I bet I can find out who can. If you need money, you need to see Brad, because now The other thing I wanted to let you know is tomorrow at our county board meeting, right after our regular board meeting, we have a work session scheduled, and we're going to deal with the scripture sign that was in Hager Park. Thanks especially to Dan for pointing me in the direction of Ken Williams. We were able to come up with some information, historical references to why that sign was there in the first place. Just to summarize that real quickly, Titus Hager, when he donated a part of the overall park, he asked and he stipulated that you know, God be recognized as the creator and the giver of the wonderful things that we have there, and he asked that the sign referencing Psalms 19:1 be a part of his expression of that. And the road commission that ran the parks at that time accepted that. The sign was put up, and until recently there was no issue. So the issue is going to come to a head tomorrow. I can't tell you what the sentiments of the rest of the board members are, but I can tell you that mine is that sign, you know, belongs there. It was part of the agreement when the county took that property to use for park purposes, and that's a hill I'm going to die on. So other than that, here we go. Get on with your meeting, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Denny. Thanks very much. Appreciate that. Anyone else who'd like to make public comment at this time? Hi, Mike.
Michael Bosch, 896 Fairwood Court. Excuse me. In the spirit of the board's recent talk of goal setting, plans to build a new senior center, and talk of expanding the library again, I thought I'd take a quick trip down memory lane back to July 2012 and the campaign videos of each of our board members. Campaign video where Mr. Vanderklok, where he refers to himself as fiscally conservative and lists that one of his priorities is to maintain the current tax rate, which was 2.25 mils. Ms. Skolma in her video says, I think it's very important to keep our taxes low at 2.25 mils. In his video, Mr. Tuttle says, we do not want to find ourselves in the position where we have to raise taxes as a township. And we're not, because we've been good stewards of the resources that are coming in, and we're finding ways to be more efficient with those resources. Mr. Schwalm talks about the senior center in his video. He says, I think people should be asked with these expenditures, almost for sure you're going to have higher taxes. People need to have the right to make a decision on that, rather than have a board say, this is what's going to happen, or we're going to raise taxes without a vote of the people. So where are we today? We're at 2.75 mils, despite the campaign promises of maintaining the 2.25 mil pass rate, or the option to put it to a vote of the people. Where are we today? Over $5 million of our hard-earned taxpayer money spent on failed projects and property acquisitions. Where are we today? Over $100,000 of lost property tax revenue every year now that we own those properties. Where are we today? Talking about even more property acquisitions on Cottonwood and Baldwin, as well as Main Street and Chicago Drive. More talk about library expansion, more talk about building a new senior center. Where are the metrics and studies supporting expansion or building new? I assume there's hundreds and hundreds of letters from residents asking for these things. It's funny, I've looked through the board meeting minutes from the past 2.5 years, trying to find them under letters and communications. You can imagine my surprise. I can't even find one. Remember the What Are You Doing August 5th vote yes on the $19 million bond brochure, the one that all 6 of you board members, plus Dale, voted to spend $20,000 of our taxpayer money on, that have printed and mailed? In the brochure it said, don't complain about the library being too small if it fails. Newsflash, no one's complaining. The majority of people are happy with the way things are. We don't want more wasteful spending. We don't want higher taxes. Remember the architectural plans for 200 Baldwin? The plans that you spent $250,000 of our hard-earned taxpayer dollars on? The $150,000 spent unnecessarily replacing parking lots this past fall? The $50,000 wasted replacing 2 perfectly fine Parks trucks? $50,000 wasted on the ice arena, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be in the red again this year? Just imagine what we could have accomplished with all that wasted money. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else that would like to address the board? Not seeing anyone, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Chris Bosch, 8574 Beretta Court. As you know, I've been to a number of the committee meetings in the last month, finance meetings and service meetings, and I got to tell you, I'm a little disappointed in the disconnect between the money that we're just throwing around on different projects and what's really happening out in Georgetown Township right now. Where I'm going with this is, you're all familiar with that almost a third of the kids in the Jenison-Hudsonville area are receiving free and reduced lunch right now. They're living either close to or near the poverty line. So there's a lot of people that are hurting right now. As you have eloquently said, there's delinquencies out there. There are people who are late on taxes, which was a great segue. My family adopted a family through the Fairhaven Reformed Church here in Jenison. And when we went to provide some of that during the holiday season, I was amazed at the environment that they were living in. And I remember myself driving away thinking to myself, gosh, I am so blessed that my family doesn't live like that. This was a family that's living 1.5 miles from my house here in this neighborhood. So I thought to myself, well, surely this must be the worst environment in Georgetown Township. Well, I'm at church yesterday, and Sherry Hondard's up front and saying, you know what, we had another small group here at church that went to a family, and the stove wasn't even working. So we had a single mom with a child without a stove working here in Georgetown Township. Where I'm going with this is it breaks my heart, and I think we need to look at some of this stuff. We're talking about spending $750,000, $750,000 on park improvements. It would be great to have that if there was no pain and nobody had any concerns with paying tax bills and putting food on the table or buying a new stove so they can cook for their family.
My concern is I do not want to look at the overall and say, you know what, apparently there's money to be thrown around everywhere. Two takeaways here. By not spending that money on frivolous stuff, it's a nice want, but it's certainly not a need to have $750,000 in a park, $1.2 million for a senior center, and on and on and on it goes. My concern is we could do two things. One, we could reduce taxes for that family that can afford to feed their children. And number two, you reduce my taxes. I now have the opportunity to bless more people with the additional money that I have, that I'm not taxed every single day. So, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that'd like to make a comment? Not yet. No, that's coming up also. Anyone else to address the board?
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Larkin. I live at 8294 Cottonwood Drive. Today I would like to talk to you about backyard chickens in Georgetown Township. Yesterday, a post was made on a Georgetown-centric Facebook page asking people if they are supportive of backyard chickens. The post asked if people would please like the post if they support. In less than 24 hours, the post received 66 likes and 94 comments. Only 2 of those comments were negative. Among those comments, it was brought to my attention that there was an article in MLive back in May. In that article, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous speaking in public. Ooh. In this article on May 23rd, it reads, Wendy Richards wrote to the Township Board in April that she was told by employees at the Planning and Zoning Department that she could not keep 4 chickens in her backyard on Cardinal Avenue, a few minutes walk from Hager Park. Her letter referenced ordinances from surrounding municipalities and noted that unlike neighboring cities, Georgetown prohibited backyard chickens in residential areas. Richard said in a phone interview that she hopes to at least have a hearing. She was disappointed when her letter was received for information but not discussed at the Township Board meeting. But after an email from Supervisor Dale Moore, she said she has hope. Moore told Richards in the email that he had spoken to Treasurer Carol Skolma, who is on the Board Services Committee. She assured me that the Services Committee would be discussing this issue in the near future, he wrote. The Services Committee meets on the 3rd Monday of the month. Richards said she knows other people are keeping chickens in their backyard and simply keeping quiet about it. But she didn't want to do that. She wanted to do what was right. Also in the article, it states that in 2008, Mark Luberts asked the Georgetown Board to allow backyard chickens. His request was also denied. Several of us went looking for this ordinance on your township site. We couldn't find anything that had anything to do with backyard chickens. The only thing that's up there is something about not being able to keep alligators and other exotic animals. As you may or may not know, the State Agriculture Committee ruled in April that townships' rules have precedence over the Right to Farm Act. As no ordinance can be found for Georgetown Township, I can only assume that chickens by default are legal here. Yet you have expressly denied them several times. You have also ignored residents and their inquiries on this matter. As posted by a DJ Smedley on this Facebook group, he wrote, there was an article last summer in the Advance about the township reviewing the chicken ordinance. My wife and I called the township and asked when they would be reviewing it because I wanted to go to the meeting. We were told sometime in September, but we never saw it on the meeting agenda. We called again and were told that they wouldn't be reviewing the chicken ordinance at all and weren't ever planning on it and didn't recall it even being in the Advance.
If you could sum up, Mrs. Larkin.
Mary Osterman also wrote you a letter back in the summer, and she didn't hear anything from any of you. And yes, I'll wrap it up now. I find it shameful that you're stringing along residents on this issue. No hearing has been scheduled. I can find nothing in any of the minutes for the Services Committee or the Township Board regarding this issue. Please do the right thing. your job and follow through on your word. Please get to work immediately on a township ordinance for backyard farming, or stop denying the people of this township the right to pursue their happiness on their private property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Anyone else? Then we move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. You board members just see the items there. A motion would be in order to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, the same. That is carried. Then we come to item number 11, which is our park plan public hearing. And the Services Committee has recommended approval for this. And the procedure will be that we will entertain a motion to open the public hearing. And then Mr. Smith from MC Smith is with us, and he will give us an introduction to that. And then if anyone has questions or comments, then you have opportunity to do that. Then the public hearing will be closed. And then there is a resolution that the Township Board may approve, and that's also there in the agenda. So I'm first of all going to ask for a motion to open the public hearing for the park plan.
I will move, Mr. Chair, that we open the public hearing.
Support.
Moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that is carried. And so I'm going to ask Mr. Smith if he'll come forward and share information about our park plan.
Thank you. I'm Michael Smith from MC Smith Associates. With me is Carrie Klinkle-Smith, and if most of you know Carrie. She's helped through the plan. We started this.
It should be working. Maybe put it
Am
down
I-
just a little, can you?
Am I doing okay? Everybody hear me okay? Okay. And we started working on the plan in about June, and it brings us here tonight for a final review of the plan. Carrie is a professional Parks and Recreation planner. She's been with my firm for about a year and a half. She previously was the Parks and Recreation Director for Byron Township. And so we've worked with you all on your previous Parks and Recreation plan, the one that was from 2009. And a little history on Parks and Recreation plans in Michigan. Many years ago, the state decided that if you were going to be eligible to receive any kind of funding assistance, both from state funds as well as federal funds for your park and recreation facilities, that you needed to develop what they referred to then, still referred to somewhat as 5-year plans that were good for 5 years. And we have worked with numerous communities and always urged the communities, and yours included, is that these plans are not just a pure driving force to obtain funds from the state or the federal government or funds, but they really are a plan that helps direct what you want to do with your community's parks for the next 5 years. And without any direction or anything planned, we see other communities stumble and really not make any good progress. The plan that we all worked with you on in 2009 really resulted in the improvements at Maplewood Park and the improvements at 8th Avenue Park, and those are substantial. They're quality of life improvements for the township. And so this plan, which will be the 2015 plan, good for another 5 years, not only provides opportunities if you want to seek out funding assistance from the state, but also provides you, I'm going to go back to that. I'm sorry, I looked at you. Can I go back to the table of contents? There we go. Not only provides you with the opportunity for funding assistance, but really provides a guidance. We do have specific criteria that are set up, and these are some of the contents of the plans. And I think the state has done a really good job many years guiding communities on what the plan should include. This plan, which has been on file and been available for public review since for the last month, and the plan content includes a description of the community, and I'm going to go through administrative structure. We do a very detailed recreation inventory, the planning and public input process. We had a survey on Facebook for a long time. It's very helpful. We look at the needs and deficiencies and relate them to other communities across the state and across the nation. Does that go? Others? There we go. Thank you. And we develop goals, objectives, an action program and capital improvement schedule, which we can talk about. That really basically says, what are you going to do with your parks in the next 5 years? And then we have a series of adoption criteria that the state has. And so, okay. Most of you know the parks, and we do an inventory, and we've looked at the ones in the lighter green, of course, are the county parks. Orange are the schools, which have an important element as far as the evaluation of what's available for members of the community. And then we have Rush Street Park, the ice arena, the soccer fields, Rosewood Park, important park, Pioneer. We have the township offices and Woodcrest Park, and of course Maplewood, and down here 8th Avenue Park, and then we have some vacant property. So that's fine. The next piece that is a lot of detail, we go through and we evaluate all of the existing facilities that are available for park and recreation utilization throughout the township. And that includes both the county's facilities, the facilities that are available at schools, the facilities that are available in your parks, and basically develop a matrix of how much we have of what kind of recreation, the total acreage which we're going to use. And another analysis. When we got to the survey, we developed a survey. It was put on your Facebook page. It was out there for, was it out there a couple months almost, and then went through an evaluation. And the survey, we had 370 or thereabout results. It was a good survey, gave people a lot of opportunities to comment on both the quality of the parks, the maintenance, as well as what they would like to see. The most popular parks, of course, were Maplewood, 8th Avenue, and Rosewood, those being the ones that are somewhat most developed. When we asked people about what park they would like to, the one that Rosewood came out as the next park that people would like to see some kind of community improvements on it. Generally, the community said that the most popular things that they have available to them are walking trails and biking trails, and we find that throughout almost every park and recreation plan we do, that people want more walking opportunities. But then the next very, very high one in Georgetown Township were additional playground improvements, the kind of improvements that have happened, for instance, at Maplewood. Picnicking facilities and water spray parks still come up as being a desirable trait. The parks were generally, by the 370 people that commented, were rated as very good. They indicated that 60% indicated that they might be interested in, not that we have anything like that proposed, but they would be interested and could pay some additional funding for special use programs. So, okay. This is just some more of the conclusions on the survey. It was a good survey, and we felt that was we got some very good input, and basically the input that we received on that survey, as well as additional input from everyone else. Now, this plan is part of the overall plan, and it's basically called a capital improvement and acquisition plan. And what we've done is we've gone through and said, in the next 5 years, what are some of the things that could happen? And these are, by no means does it mean because you approve this plan that you're going to do these things. It doesn't mean that you have to do these things. It means that given funding opportunities and giving opportunities for improvements in the parks, that these would be the most desirable kinds. And just starting with some of the ones that were the highest, we start with Rosewood, and Rosewood, I can't read it from here, but I'm going to tell you what it says. I know what it says. Things like restroom buildings, improved playgrounds, walking trails, improved splash pad, and just a good improvement to the opportunities, and bring this park up to the same level of quality and opportunities as we would have, for instance, in Maplewood. Rush Creek, There's opportunities for some better access, to provide an access route into the park. Looking at the opportunities for frisbee golf and picnic shelters and playground improvements. In the future then, we look at the opportunity for trail around Maplewood Lake and expansion of that opportunity. That's one that would probably have some funding opportunities. Then we look at potential expansions of some of the parks, in particular, the possibility of 8th Avenue someday in the future, expanding, and some acquisition expansions for this vacant piece of land you have that accesses the Grand River. And then this plan basically indicates some of the opportunities for continuing trail connections. Ottawa County, of course, has a continued objective of having a non-motorized trail in this area. We're looking at the opportunity of continued trail connections. These are basically roadside connections. And just a continued expansion and connection, if you will, of some of the good trails and sidewalks and walkways that you currently have available to you. Specifically in the capital improvement plan, we look at things like Rosewood Park improvements, and a grant application for Maplewood Park. The grants are much more competitive and becoming more difficult. You've done a good job, and they recognize that with the money that you were awarded for some of the Maplewood improvements. That would go well. Trails are very popular, any kind of trails with the state. And so if anyone wanted to look at this goes on, for several pages about the opportunities for continued park improvements from 2015 through 2022. We've actually expanded it, and usually we do that. And those are the kinds of things that should other grant opportunities arise, and there may be some, having your goals and objectives and having them part of your capital improvement schedule is significant. And as well as I said at the very beginning, it gives the township a continual guidance in the overall development of the plan. It was interesting in the survey, some of the important things that were really said from the citizens about what parks do for a community, and over half the respondents responded that it was it greatly contributes to a physically healthy community. We all know that having the opportunity for the children of all abilities to be out in park and recreation areas and both with their parents and significant others is a very significant contributor to their growth and maturity. Comments like a socially thriving community, 40% of those said that really parks and recreation provide those social opportunities for people. And very importantly, I think the most important one, and we've seen this throughout many parks that we've worked on, is it really develops and continues to maintain a high quality in communities. And parks statistically and undoubtedly help maintain community quality and statistically maintain property values throughout communities. Parks, communities and townships that have good parks, it helps maintain property values along with contributing to quality of life. So as we complete this plan then gets submitted to the state. It's a DNR division, and they basically approve the plan, and then for the next 5 years, your plan is good. If you decide to make any substantial changes, you can amend your plan. That's not a difficult process, and sometimes necessary if something else evolves. So it's a very, we've had it on file, as you know, it's quite a long, complex plan. There's a lot of detail to it, and I'd be happy to, or Carrie would be happy to assist in answering any questions that you may have.
Okay, Mike, thank you. This is a public hearing, and so we will allow any member of the public who would like to make comments on the park plan. If you'd like to do that, I think you had some comment that you wanted to make. You can come forward and do that. And if there's anyone else, and then once the public has completed their input, then any questions that any board member has, they can address them as well. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lana Ellens. I know it's hard to talk about park improvements when there are people in Georgetown Township that are in need, but I live on Brentwood Street. I've lived there for 26 years, and I walk through the park all the time. I love the park. I take my grandkids there. We have picnics there. My daughter was engaged there, so we've renamed it Proposal Park. And I do appreciate the improvements that have been done to the park. That is good, but the things that are older in the park have just gone by the wayside. I'd like to know who patrols the park anymore to see if the dogs are on leashes. A couple years ago, I was bit by a dog, and so I remind people, I'm not afraid to remind them that their dogs are supposed to be on leashes, and they just, and go by. I'd also like to see a little, I don't know what you call the poop bags that they have for the dogs, be attached to the pole where it says the dogs are supposed to be on leashes. Occasionally, I see men there from the correction facility who work at the park, but could they work there more often? There are broken branches, the grass is overgrowing on the sidewalk, the weeds are coming up through the rocks on the far east end of the park where all that was redone, and I know quite a bit of money was put into that. People throw rocks into the water, and I'm not ashamed to remind them not to do that either. So now we have a problem. There are beavers in the back of the park, and they are chewing down. What?
8th Avenue.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And they are chopping down all the trees. I counted 25 of them down in the water when we had that break in the weather there, and there's probably 6 more that are dying because they're, chewing on those. I don't know if they're in hibernation now, but I was told that that's a DNR problem, so I don't know where to go with that from here. One of the trees broke down the fence, so now that's got to be repaired, and so I just would like to see more upkeep on the park if possible.
Okay, thank you. I do know that they've been out there trying to see what they can do about the beaver, and I suppose once those trees are all gone, the beavers will be gone because there won't be any trees for them to destroy. That's unfortunate that they have done that, though. That's right. Any other member of the public who would like to address the park plan?
Chris Bosch, 8574 Beretta Court. As you know, I was at many of the service meetings when we were talking about the park, and I'm not quite sure how we went from $750,000 to the latest proposal here by MC Smith. Looks to be 1.3 million, but what's $500,000 between politicians, I guess? I don't understand that exactly. The other part, when you keep talking about a good survey, a Facebook survey is not scientific. A couple hundred people out of 50,000 in our township, nowhere close to scientific. I'm not sure if we get a representative sampling of taxpayers out there, for one. The other concern I have with the survey is it goes back to something I mentioned in the service meeting. It's like, does anybody want a Cadillac? Well, everybody wants a Cadillac. Well, do you want leather seats? Well, sure, I'll take leather seats. Oh, you mean I have to pay for it? That's a different thing. The survey didn't have, would you like this stuff at a cost of X amount of dollars in taxpayers' dollars? I think we need to be honest with people and let them know when we're doing these surveys that there is a cost associated with everything. I know there's grant money and everybody thinks that's free. It comes from the federal government like manna from heaven. That's taxes too. It comes out of this pocket or it comes out of that pocket. Our national government right now is $18 trillion in debt, and we have $100 million in unfunded liabilities. As a younger person, I'm wondering where all this is going with this spending.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to address the park plan? Then a motion would be in order to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And now comments. Jim, I think you wanted to.
Oh, I was going to say, if you've seen how Duck Dynasty deals with beavers, that might be a good example how to get rid of those. But anyways, but since you threw it over this way, I appreciate it. I'm not on the services committee, and many of the things that I've heard talked about, either among the public in the recent years or even among the board, I saw encapsulated in there. I realize some of it, to some degree, is a wish list. It's looking out there. It's saying to be determined, et cetera. But at least to have them encapsulated into a report and you know, more or less memorialized so they're not lost, because there were some great ideas that have come up along the way. Wondered, I agree with you, walkability is a hot topic, trails and the like. And I don't know if you face this in 5 years, is probably not the window in which this would be dealt with, but as we extend along the, hopefully along the river, from perhaps one day 8th Avenue Park, even on down to the connection down to what the county's doing along the Grand River, there's the matter of Chicago Drive. And I didn't know if, because you've had some great ideas in the past, I don't know if that discussion has come up this early, but have you thought about or given thought in the future as to how the problem of crossing Chicago Drive will ever be circumvented, short of some elaborate, you know, tunnel or something of that kind? Have you talked about that at all? Okay. All right. I mean, we can only think of a handful, at least I can, of examples locally. I know there was always the walking, kind of that graded metal bridge over top of, what is it, Ivan Rest and 28th Street, or I think of now when M6 came through, that, you know, you can go on the path that leads to Byron Center, you go underneath it, you know. Not sure that it would ever merit either one of those types of designs, but it's certainly something to kind of think about for the future. Should that connect? I mean, if you can connect that far and that effectively, as a parent, and even as an adult, not thinking of your own kids but yourself, it's always going to be sort of a block in your mind of, ooh, you know, crossing that busy road. That'll have to be, I guess, one day addressed and figured out. But I liked it. I liked a lot of what you had to say. Now the question is the priorities and cost.
Okay, good. Anyone else? There is an opportunity for a resolution to adopt the Park and Recreation Plan for Georgetown Township as a guideline for the next 5 years, and a motion would be in order to adopt that resolution.
If I could, I've actually got a couple comments in no specific order, not even all related to each other, but as different folks were talking, I just had a couple comments. First, thanks to the folks from MC Smith for developing the Parks Plan. I know it's a useful planning tool, but primarily the economic benefit of it is the opportunity to go after grant dollars. And I'm sensitive to everything Mr. Bosch shared, but I do want to offer one point of clarification. The park dollars are not federal grant dollars. They come from the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund, which are monies that come from oil and mineral rights, and in the state of Michigan can only be used for park and community improvements. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the last time I saw the amount of money in that pool, it was like $500 million. And I know our state legislature made a run at those dollars a few years ago, and those dollars were actually deemed to be protected, that they may only be used for the purposes of the trust fund. So those grant dollars don't actually come from taxes and are only available for that singular purpose. So I'm in total agreement with you on a conservative approach to spending and all of that. I've got the same questions about the price escalation and all of that you do. But just as a point of clarification, if these dollars aren't spent on parks, they won't be spent on anything. And if we don't go after some of those dollars, then other communities will. And maybe that's the right approach. Maybe it's not, but it's not our federal or our tax dollars that are going towards funding those types of grants. But one thing that came as an aha to me during this whole parks planning process, and I appreciate the work that the folks at MC Smith did, was the incorporation of some of the universal design into parks. It's something I just wasn't sensitive to in the past. Didn't recognize it, and frankly, I grew up in this community, and apparently I'll just talk louder then. So, universal design when it comes to our parks, the fact that not everybody is as able-bodied as my children are, and many of your children are, but we have quite a few people in this community who aren't able to utilize parks due to disabilities and other things. And what really came out is some of our parks are lacking in that ability for folks that have disabilities to use our parks. And so that was something that came up. I know if we wanted to make every park universally accessible, it's astronomical as far as the price, but I do think that those elements of the plan are something that should be paid attention to so that we have those opportunities available for folks in our community. I'm sensitive to the fact too that, as Mr. Bosch brought up, there's a lot of people that are struggling in our community and going without, and I'm very sensitive to any expenditures. I'm also sensitive that quite frequently when you're struggling, the community assets are the only assets you have available to you for park and recreation. You can't afford a club membership or a membership at the YMCA. Sometimes parks become those opportunities for families to get out and enjoy time together, enjoy exercise, and utilize something that they don't have to have a cost for. So that's the struggle for me, the yin and the yang of not wanting to spend dollars, but yet wanting to spend dollars in a really smart way that actually add value. So I'm supportive of the Parks Plan. I'm probably not supportive of 100% of the stuff in the Parks Plan, as I doubt any of you are, but overall I think it's a good plan. I appreciate the work that you folks put in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
I'd like to echo what Chad has just shared and had an opportunity.
I did.
Had an opportunity to work with Mike on this as part of the service committee with Carol, and it's very, very professional, very detailed. We appreciate your professionalism. You've done this work for many, many other communities. Gave us a great deal of insight. Until 2009, 2010, I believe that was the first time that Georgetown Township has had a parks plan. And by doing that, it did open up the grants. The comments that we've received concerning Maplewood Park have been extremely supportive. There were people that were very critical when it first opened. Once individuals had a chance to enjoy it, again, as Chad has mentioned, with difficult economic times, where can people on a tight budget go? And Maplewood Park is phenomenal. And I just can't say enough positive things about it. Lana's comment, Mrs. Owens, about 8th Avenue. Beautiful park, and I share your concern. I love walking that park. I went down there and took pictures of the beavers' work. I counted 30 trees. Very unusual to have something like that in a metropolitan area like this with a water treatment plant on that stream, really a drainage ditch, but still unusually to have that kind of quality. However, yes, it's damaging the park, and that needs to be addressed. And the improvements that were done in the play area I thought were exceptional. The walking trail is used regularly. Many, many people utilize that trail, and I found it, I think, to be very, very useful. So I appreciate the professionalism of MC Smith. Very well done.
Okay, thank you, John. Well, I would move that the board adopt the park plan as presented as a guideline for Georgetown Township for the next 5 years.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any other comments? Okay, this is a resolution, and so I'll take a voice vote for this. Mr. Wieringa?
Yeah, I support this.
Mr. Valerius?
Yes.
Mrs. Skolma?
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Mr. Tuttle? Yes. Mr. Schwam?
Yes.
And that is carried. Thank you. Our next item is a public hearing for the installation of sidewalks on 48th Avenue. Again, a motion would be in order to open the public hearing, and then, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
And then to, if there's anyone who'd like to speak to it, and then we will have a motion to close the public hearing and then act on the installation. So I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved and supported to open the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That is carried. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to the installation of sidewalks on 48th Avenue?
Yeah, I'm Cal Scuddy. I'm the first one for the largest piece of property coming from the new Unity School there. And I've talked to Unity people about it. They're not in favor of it because they told me they didn't want their students going a short distance and then no sidewalk. So, and I'm, you know, I've got an agricultural business there, and that's my reasoning for not wanting it. Plus, I don't see, it kind of goes nowheres to where, I know there's a lot of people, I lived there all my life, but our people actually, there's nothing north, there's nothing south, so are the people actually gonna be coming, walking down the road and get there, now they're just gonna all of a sudden jump on the sidewalk for 1,000 feet or whatever it ends up being, and then jump back off. So, I mean, there's no sidewalk in front of Bauer Elementary, which there's a lot of, you know, smaller kids there and everything, which I would think would use it more than, like, Unity said they don't want their high school kids even thinking about trying to walk down for a short period and then there's no place for them to go from there. And, you know, I understand that 48th is a busy road. I lived there all my life. And I know you probably gotta maybe start somewhere if this is why you did it, because they got the school going there, but I would think then make it so that there's a long stretch of it, so, I mean, the bicyclers, they don't use, they're always on the road anyhow, so I'm not, you know.
To the north of your property, isn't there a sidewalk?
There is when.
And that goes into the subdivision? And that, where does that end? Does that sidewalk end at your property line, or?
It ends at my father's property line.
Okay, and he is the smaller parcel? Yes. I see. So there is a sidewalk to the north of that property, and then that goes into the subdivision there.
And then that subdivision goes to Port Sheldon, but then there's no sidewalk on Port Sheldon. So there's, you know, it's like, they can go a certain distance, but then where? So I'm just, you know, I'm not, I mean, you know, not trying to say, you know, getting picked on because I'm the one in between here, but like this thing, if it's only gonna go just a short distance, it's not gonna benefit a great amount, you know, if it went, you know.
The goal, of course, is to connect where to the south of your property, because there will be a sidewalk that'll be put in front of Unity Christian High School. And so the goal, of course, within the township, not just to your piece of property only, but the goal is to connect those sidewalks as we can, as we're able to. And so that's part of the goal, because there's already the existing sidewalk to the north of your property.
Yeah. If you wanna save money, you can go and do like about a quarter of the distance and go from Unity's property to the subdivision that is on the east side of me. There's sidewalk there too. If you wanted to save, this would be just like probably 100 feet and they'd be hooked up.
Can you say that again, please?
Yeah.
North, or
Which street is that, Dan?
it's right,
There you go, I saw it.
Right.
right there. They got, you know, but that's, you know,
So that's really to the east
yeah.
of your property, and it really would take it away from 48th Avenue.
Yes, but if you wanted to get into the subdivision, if that's all you wanted to, I mean, because basically, once you get out of that subdivision, there is no sidewalk on 48th or Port Sheldon. You know, if you're trying to say, well, people stay off the main roads, that's, you know, they can only get from the subdivision to the school. And from what I understood, it only goes up to their, what, the principal told me it only goes to their south drive. That's where the
I think there's a drainage ditch there, isn't there? I think that's where it ends.
their retention pond. is
Right,
there.
right, correct.
So that's my only feelings, like
Okay,
it's not really, you know, I can see it if you wanted to run it from Unity to Bauer School, you know, but I see people, I don't see them jumping off, if they're coming down 48th and jumping off on going for 1,000 feet, and then they're gonna jump back onto the side of the road again anyhow, so
okay,
that's,
all right, thank you.
I just,
Yeah, that's good, we appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Stay.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak to this?
She would stay.
I don't know why he didn't stay.
You might, call him back. No, he's fine. He said his piece. Yeah.
Okay, so the motion then would be in order to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is that supported?
Support.
Carried? All in favor, I should say? I just assumed it'd be carried. Moved and supported to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried. Then we have from the Utilities Committee a suggested motion for the construction of that pedestrian path on the two parcels on 48th Street that were on the screen just a moment ago to connect Uni Christian High School path in the residential district north along the following parcels. And as I indicated, if you go out there, you will see that there is a sidewalk to the north of the parcels, and Mr. Scuddy indicated that that smaller parcel belonged to his father, and then the other is the larger piece that belongs to him. And so motion would be in order either to direct that construction take place or not to do so, but what's the mind of the board?
I'd move to order the construction of that pedestrian path.
Okay, is that supported? I'll support it. Comments?
I guess just a comment. I am pulling that up and looking at the map, that neighborhood. Are there plans in the future to bring the sidewalk any further down 48th? Is it strictly to get it connected to that neighborhood, or are there other thoughts to get it connected over to a park in the future? Or?
So this would be
And then the plan is to bring it further down Port Sheldon.
At some point.
Right.
At some point.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Dan. If we approve this, is he obligated to pay the cost of the sidewalk, or do we assist or help, or?
Well, that's basically, the alternative he has is, you know, he would either pay for it or trade us right away and we would pay for it. That's what we decided were the two choices before. And if you order it, then he could still grant right away to us, and then we would pay for it.
And that would be an easement then, right?
Right. So that would be his choice at that point. He would be down to those two choices if you did.
So he would grant an easement, and there'd be no direct cost to him, and it would connect from the existing sidewalk all the way to the new high school.
Yes, those two parcels. If they granted easements, and that was the proposal that you granted at no cost. Understanding, you know, not here, he's farming the parcel. That was his concern about having the sidewalk in the area he's farming. So it's kind of it's not his full-time job, I don't want to apply that, but he does farm the parcel. So that was his concern.
but children and citizens who would be coming down the existing sidewalk now would have to go out on 48th Avenue along the road. There's nothing there.
No sidewalks there.
No, but part of the understanding agreement is Unity Christian is going to install some sidewalk, which when they do, if his weren't paved, you'd have a gap.
Right.
And then it picks up again, right? And I thought we're quite fair with the school in that respect, because we had discussions with them, and we deferred on some other that we could have required from them and said, you know what, we have the right to order it. We may in the future, reserve the right to do so, but for the time being, you're right, that's probably not profitable. And I want to say, was that headed this direction, or was it going beyond? Remind me, Dan, the portion.
So, yeah, you can't really tell, but the Unity parcel will come down and they have their driveways, and then this very south part of the Unity parcel is a holding pond, and that's where we're talking about.
That's right. It's always it's always kind of a delicate consideration with these. On the one hand, we get, at least I'll speak for myself, I think I hear more about walkability than almost any other issue in the township. And I've heard about specifically 48th Avenue. I've had people say, well, why don't you get us a bike path and whatever. And you get torn between, and those who are on the utilities committee and have to deal with it, situations where it's obvious, where you got sidewalk, one gap, sidewalk, and you go, that's just got to happen. I mean, that's an idea whose time has come. We've had the subdivisions where we've set reasonable periods of additional time and required even that there be, I think, at least 75% development. I mean, we've bent over backward to make what we require in the way of sidewalks useful and necessary. In any instance, there's some sense of a burden or an infliction, and I think you'll never avoid that. But there's a point where you're balancing the greater good of the public and a property owner in particular, especially given the option that we give them, to where you're not saying, look, you're slamming them financially as much as you're opposing what they'd like to see and maintain the way of the status quo. Certain points, it outweighs, and you make a move, and unless you do, you don't begin to make progress. And I think, as you said, Dan, it's a very long-term plan, but you have to start somewhere, and the pieces that we have been trying to with as they arise have, for the most part, have made a lot of sense, one day, I think, we'll all be very pleased, as these things come together. I was one who had to give an easement out in front of my house, so I know of what I speak there. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think the other major issue for me, at least, is the whole safety issue. Now that we're going to have a high school there and we're going to have a sidewalk portion in front of the high school, and it just seems, to me, it just seems logical to make a connection so that we don't have high school students or others going off into the street. And I think that really dovetails perfectly with our code of ordinances that was listed in the agenda and made that point. So I think it's, I agree with what you said, Jim.
And even with what you're saying, Rich, there will always be, these will end somewhere, and you can
Right.
go, well, hey, that ended.
Right.
Where are they going to go? Yeah, this has an end as well. If you want to continue on 48th, it has an end.
Right.
So there's
Right.
no doubt until you have it completed, that's always the argument. Well, where does it lead to? It ends.
And we also don't know, at this point, 48th Avenue, that's a major roadway in the county, and we have no idea what's going to happen to 48th Avenue within the next 10 or 15 years either. But nevertheless, as Mr. Scuddy himself said, it gets busier and busier.
I wish he was here, because what he said, I think, is exactly what I would have said. And in the way he said it,
Yeah.
I think I'd have probably said it in that way. I appreciate his comments. So,
Excuse me. Motion has been made and supported. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
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 Contrary, no. That motion is carried. Then we come to item 13. This is for a public hearing. I'm losing my voice. Public hearing for installation of sidewalks on 14th Avenue. Again, to open the public hearing, someone want to make that motion?
I will move to open the public hearing.
Is that supported? All those in favor?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear if there was a support.
It was
Okay,
supported.
all right.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same. That's carried. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to the construction of sidewalk on that one parcel? You'll see there that the other property owners, as it indicates there, have already agreed to that sidewalk.
Aye.
Contrary, the same. That's carried. Now we go to the motion for ordering the construction of sidewalks on one parcel to connect the existing sidewalks on 14th Avenue.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any additional comments on that?
She'll have the same option also at this point.
You will see that it was actually originally these parcels all as well. There's no sidewalk anywhere where there's the spot here as well. These property owners have all agreed. This is actually a township parcel. So to connect, we go through here. This is the one who didn't agree, and the rest have all agreed to an easement. People have got the same option. This would complete the sidewalk from 44th all the way around that.
Any other questions?
This will tie in with the paths along 44th Avenue.
Thank you.
And there's quite a drop-off on the side where the church is at. I think it's very practical. I've had people in that area ask that this type of thing take place, walking to church, riding their bikes, and so forth.
I personally have had my bike going right down there and no sidewalks, not a good situation. And there's no place to ride in the road.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, the same. That is carried. Now we come to item number 14. This deals with Rosewood Park, and as we've already discussed some things about Rosewood Park, but there is a motion here to authorize the superintendent to have MC Smith draw a plan including the following to stay within the $850,000 budget, to bring the plan back to the board for review and action. And these items: restroom building with small concession area using the building design plan submitted by MC Smith, which we've all looked at. Improvements, upgrades to the current parking area not included on the new proposal, not including the new proposed south parking area shown on the design concept plan. A new barrier-free play area and that access ramp as shown on the MC Smith design concept plan. Tables and fixed seating as shown on the design concept plan, and a 30-foot picnic shelter rather than the 40-foot shelter shown on the plan. And the Finance Committee is recommending approval. Those are, as you looked at that design plan, we had it here also at a board meeting, and we discussed several things there on that design, but these are the items that we're recommending for 2015. And Mr. Smith made reference to the capital improvement schedule, and the only thing that did not appear in the original capital improvement schedule was the restroom at Rosewood Park, and we've heard people ask for that, and they've asked for additional play area, and so this is something that's coming to the board, and I would move the adoption of this proposal. If someone supports it.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Now, discussion.
And just a clarification, this isn't obviously them drawing a plan from scratch. It's pulling things off the plan that they
Right.
previously showed us. So I'm assuming the turnaround on this work is relatively quick on their part. And
Well, there's two steps. I mean, there's the layout, which is the actual construction document.
Yeah, but from the layout we were shown previously, it's basically just going to delete off that layout.
Right.
are we comfortable that the 5 changes proposed up here get to that $850,000 number?
I
No, you can't. That's the max, but whether it'll be that much, I'm not sure.
So there may be more than this per se that has to come off that plan we previously saw. Yeah.
How
We're
does that
setting a
square
hard
then
budget
with-
number here.
Because did you look at, I mean, they had 875 listed in the capital improvement schedule of the 5-year plan, right? And that's with a splash pad. Did we get more definite numbers after that plan was proposed that led us to believe that with these deletions, we're still bumping up against that number? I don't recall.
The park plan number does
Yeah.
not include the splash pad or some additional things he proposed in his master plan.
Okay, you mean,
That number there, not that, in that original site layout you see, the original site layout was 1.3 million.
okay, why then on page 3 of the capital improvement schedule do we have 875,000, including the splash pad?
Well, it includes the certain items listed as the playground, but then when you start pricing all the things that you saw in the overall layout,
Yeah.
that came into a fair number.
So that's my question. Subsequent to this, we got more definite figures. So it won't be lost, though, on us that if we should cut, and I agreed with what we cut the last time, with the exception of those splash pads are so popular, and this is so centrally located. We keep referring to that family that can't afford, other opportunities and options. That is such a draw. I hope that by withholding that we don't wait and push that to the bottom of 5 years or off indefinitely. If we're just trying to say, well, we want to, for this year, we only want to spend X amount, and it stays in the mix toward the top, I'd love to see us implement that. Some of the other things we cut, I think, could wait maybe forever. I don't know. Maybe they wait for some period of time, but that was one. I don't know if others felt that way, but that was one that I'd like to have seen in the mix this year, quite frankly. But if it weren't, I'd want to see it in the mix the year following. Yeah. Anybody?
No,
Thoughts
I
about that?
would agree with that. I think at least from the standpoint that it's a future consideration. When I thought about this, I was looking at it from the standpoint of when you go there, we know the parking lot needs to be improved. I mean, that parking lot's in terrible shape. We've had people over the course of time talk about bathroom facilities there. So that seems logical. And we've had wonderful response from the community with regard to the play area. And some of those that are taking advantage of that play area have said to us, boy, it'd sure be nice if you had a bigger play area. This particular play area that he proposed on that design plan also will be completely accessible. And that's why on his design plan, he used that word with the access ramp, to make it handicap accessible, which I think is a great thing. So to me, those seem to be the items that,
Higher priority.
yeah,
Top priority,
for me
sure.
would be a higher priority. I'm not saying I'm opposed to the splash pad. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
But when you think, okay, now, in addition to this, you're going to add another whatever figure that would be.
Sure.
And then maybe someone else will say, but boy, I really like, so to me, for me, this is
Yeah.
prioritizing.
I mean, if you're there and you have to go to the bathroom, you have to go to the bathroom, but you don't go, I have to go to a splash pad. So
Right,
I get that, but it is in a flat area where we propose it
Oh,
to be with
sure.
no trees and it's heat, and there isn't a lake there, unlike Maplewood Park or 8th Avenue Park.
Sure.
I mean, this is a place where you go, that's accessible
Yeah.
to a lot of neighborhoods, and a lot of kids would be over there, and families. So hopefully, I just put that thought in to go, let's not let that fall off the radar.
Right, right, good. Anyone else on this?
I have a thought. I'm concerned, I don't know the answer, with city to shore with slip and slide by reducing the 40-foot shelter to 30-foot, whether that makes a difference for them or not, because they always have, they have their big tent. And the question is, what is the size of the tent, which I don't know. And if we were to build a shelter, would we accommodate extra outlets so that when their sponsors come, there's places to plug things in? I think it'd be wise that somebody from city to shore would meet with someone from here or with Michael. You know, what size do you need? And outlets, I'm not implying we're going to build it strictly for them, but it's such a huge event in the summertime that it would seem to me that we would make plans to incorporate the largest event in the township.
Mm-hmm. I don't know for sure, Ron, but I don't think that if this was accomplished, that would infringe that much on the territory that they use for their slip and slide.
Yeah, but what they...
We're not doing anything south other than where the new park or where the new play area is going to be, but I don't think it's going to infringe terribly. I may be wrong about that, but I, just from observing and visualizing what this would look like, I don't think it would.
From what I saw, I thought a lot of the improvements would be very complementary to the event, having additional shelter, having some bathrooms on site, improved parking areas, additional playground equipment. I think the concerns you bring up are something that certainly can be discussed during the development of the construction documents and stuff, but overall, I think it's a very complementary plan to that event and a lot of the other uses in the park. So I think it's overall good improvements.
I think there'll still be enough space for tents.
But my point is that they would probably prefer not to get a tent.
Oh, I see.
And I think, I'm just going to go on the record for City to Shore, is that if you were to look at the financial statement, what this thing costs to put on is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And not that we as a township have a responsibility, but you know what? They've done a great thing for this community. It's a great event, a lot of PR, and maybe we need to reevaluate and say, hey, let's touch base with them and see if this shelter is large enough to accommodate their sponsors. And instead of building a 30-foot, may cost us more to build a 40-foot, but that covers their sponsors and it covers the event. Slip and slide's not going away. This will be a long-term event.
Huge. Yeah.
That I don't know.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, it's gigantic.
So it'd be
That's a big tent.
It was huge.
And I don't know this answer, so if that tent's that huge, where are we going to put it after we make our improvements?
Well, I don't think we've infringed on all that open space. Design here, now that we're establishing what the design will be, but we can certainly accommodate the space for where the vendors are. That's fine.
I'm just saying, I want to make sure that
So it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Motion has been made and supported. If there's no further discussion, are we prepared to vote?
But just a real quick comment, kind of dovetailing on what Jim had said. We had talked with MC Smith about a smaller version of the splash pad, and I think it was about $76,000 to $80,000. It would transform that area. It would be the focus. So I certainly would like to see that on Plan B. So down the road, I hope that'll be something to be considered by this board or another board.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying that because you wish it was Plan A, but you don't think the votes are there for Plan A? Or
I'd like to see what the bottom line is when we
Yeah.
get the cost back from MC.
But would you not incorporate the splash pad in Plan A and include it now and see what the cost is? Because you can always delete it. I just think it would be a huge success for that park. And go back saying, put the splash pad in and give us a final cost.
Or you can also add it later. Oh, it certainly would at this point.
Say it again, Dan?
Brought to the building, if you're designing for that kind of water flow, if you're building a smaller one, it's obviously not as big, but, you know, there's a significant amount of water that goes to Maplewood splash pad, and it's a separate water main had to be brought in, you know, to be able to accommodate that. So it'd be nice to know if we're putting that water line in now in anticipation of something in the future. You understand? I think we don't have to build a pad, but at least we think you'd want to put the pipe in to accommodate something.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, the motion is made and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Contrary, the same. That's carried. Then we move to item number 15, which deals with the senior center. And this is, again, from the Finance Committee to approve obtaining a site plan for a new 10,000 square foot senior center facility on the east side of the current senior center, that is at the east end of the property, not to exceed 2 floors and not to exceed a construction cost of $150 per square foot. And I would move that.
Support.
Moved and supported to get it on the floor for discussion. Comments?
Just as a point of clarification, we're requesting a site plan here, right, to see how this fits on that, or how it could potentially fit on that property and have them come back to us. I mean, this isn't the final approval to say we're doing a new senior center. This is a motion to say, bring us a site plan, show us how it could fit, show us what it would look like on this property so that. Yes, okay, good, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, the motion's made and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, the same. That's carried. Now we get to number 16. This is the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2015-02, the drug paraphernalia revision ordinance. So this is the second time it's come before. So motion would be in order to approve this and adopt it rather on second reading.
So moved.
And it's supported. Is there any discussion? And this also would be roll call, and so Mr. Wieringa?
Support.
Mr. Valerius?
Support.
Mrs. Skolma?
Yes.
Clerk supports. Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
And Mr. Schwam?
Yes.
That is carried. Then we come to item 17, and this is to, in the past, we've talked about marketing 200 Baldwin. The motion is to authorize the township superintendent to complete the listing agreement with Colliers for the marketing of 200 Baldwin Street for $1,900,000 with a stipulation that 50 feet from the center line of Baldwin and Main Street are to be reserved. And again, I would move this in order, and if someone supports it, to get it on the floor for discussion.
Support.
Moved and supported. Just to say, when we had our planning session a week ago, I think it was it a week ago today? I think it was. This was discussed, and I think there was general agreement that we would like to market, obviously, 200 Baldwin, but there was some expression on the part of some of the board members that they'd like to reserve a piece of that corner. And so this 50-foot from the center line on Baldwin and on Main Street, that portion would be reserved. It would not be a part of the listing agreement for this piece of property.
I'm trying to picture it when it says the center lines of both roads mean where they meet, and counting from that point of connection or intersection where.
This was started as a way, one of the corner, and the road commission basically asked that their standard was 60 feet. They're looking for the whole length of the property. So measuring from the center of the road, we currently have 33. Most parts of Baldwin are 43. Their current standard is 60. And so because that's kind of in between the two, that we don't have many larger than 50, they can still do the 5-lane segment with sidewalks. That's what they're proposed to kind of hold that back. We wouldn't sell that property. So you could fix the road, for the angle and put in sidewalks as needed.
So Dan, we could
continue with the 50 feet on Main and
But at that corner, where there may not be much room, right across from that corner, we have an easement that goes all the way back to the Grand River that is about 15 feet wide. There's probably a good chance that that'll be a pathway. I'd like to make a recommendation that we go with the county's recommendation of 60 feet, which would be simply adding 10 more feet onto the corner, which I think would give us, no, just at the point, so that where the intersection is, there'd be an extra 10 feet there. I'm concerned that not just how the traffic might be someday rerouted there. If you did want to put a sign, a bench, or if a future board wanted to do something there with a clock or shrubbery or whatever, that there would be enough room. And I'm not sure that there would be.
If you would want to do that, then you'd have to amend this motion to indicate that the amendment is to add an additional 10 feet at the point. I don't know if that's the correct way to describe it, something like that, in order so that we understand, so that it's not 10 feet on the, and I don't really know what that point.
I think, would we call it the northwest point of that property?
That would be a good descriptor? That would be, you think, good?
But that gets at the heart of the kind of the difficulty of reading the way it's written right now, Rich. I mean, I wish I could visualize. I wish we had a line drawn that you could see, Dan, on the map itself, because. Oh, good. This actually takes into account what's up there? This is what.
Carol, pass this down to Jim too, would you? That may be also helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. See, because when you said Baldwin, I was thinking, are you going both directions? You're really seeing from this point.
Well, this is saying this whole length.
Yeah. Right.
And then he's adding 10 feet on the corner.
But just like this. Just like that.
John, do you want to make an
That's not how
amendment?
that reads to me in my mind, but that looks the way I want it to look on paper, That's fine, as long as it's understood. Yeah.
Yes, I would.
Okay. John is going to make an amendment to this motion.
I'd like to recommend that we add 10 feet on the northwest corner, which would be the point, to leave enough room there for traffic and some potential development in the future. So it would be 10 feet on the northwest corner.
Support.
That would stay with the county's recommendation.
All right, that's been moved and supported. Any discussion on the amendment?
When you're asking for discussion about, you mean the...
Just the amendment.
Okay, I'm just wondering if I heard Dan correctly. Let's say they decided, and it was decided, boy, to turn that corner, or to add a lane or what have you, it's going to take, up to the 60 feet or whatever. Are we suggesting that there may not be anything left over if we both fix the turn and wish to put, some sort of modest sign there or something? I don't conceptually, I think and I look at you, John, I think you and I have the same mind about this, which is don't want to hinder the marketability of the property, want to be able to reserve the right to fix that turn, and also still want to have just a little bit of room there if a sign about the business district or whatever would make sense one day or whatever. I just can't look at that and go, oh, 60 feet, that does it. I wish someone would reassure me, and Dan, maybe I'm asking you this, but is that more than adequate for what I'm describing? And Jim, your concern is unfounded.
To fix the road. To do this. Okay, to fix it and to make it less of a strange turn, yes?
Well, I asked what it would take to fix the road.
What does that
They
mean?
felt 60 feet would be more than adequate to do anything to fix the road. But that is not doing what John's saying of putting a parcel at the corner to save, right there. He's talking about adding 10 feet in the corner. But we're having trouble with batteries with everything today. So that's what he's talking about here at the corner here. So this line is, would be the 50 feet would be here. That's what the 50 feet is talking about, all here, all the way across here. That's reserving the 50 feet. Then I understand what you're talking about is, okay, we got our 50 feet coming right here, now adding in the corner 10 feet, the west 10 feet, making this bigger. Yes, that's why I'm understanding what he's saying. Okay, so you have your full 50 going all the way across, and then here, an additional 10 feet where these two 50s now come and hit, we're extending that 10 feet.
I get that, in the 50 feet, now that wasn't in my mind previously because we talked so much about that point. Did we need to, or would it have been approved if we hadn't had that discussion? Would we have never even given the 50-foot all along there? And if so, what's the purpose of that? Thinking it might be an additional lane one day? Or?
The purpose of that is so that when we want to put a path, or if we want to put a path, you want the property full length to put a path. It's important to know the other property is talking about is right here, is the spot we own right here to get to the river.
Yep.
And that's why if you could cross at this light, you could get from a path here to get across to the river.
See, because that helps in there, because before we were thinking about talking about the potential for some public use. But what we're really also saying here by this is, hey, for future pathway or whatever, that's another issue, but that's an important one as well. Yeah. So now we're supposed to scratch our heads and say, should we make it 70? Because what if the road commission uses all 60 and the purpose of reserving a little spot there is gone? Huh? Now we are affecting the, well, that's what I'm asking. That in that respect, then what's the likelihood of having to go to 60? It seems unlikely. Is that?
Well, if you're comparing to what they have everywhere else.
Yeah.
On Baldwin, it's the dream. You know, you have plenty of room to work, but they don't have that anywhere else.
Say that again.
It's the dream in an open space to have 60 feet to work.
Oh.
And all the other issues. You don't have that any other places in the developed area. They have it in the undeveloped area. If you go to the subdivision, then it's 60 feet.
Okay, so hearing what John and I are saying, and obviously not making guarantees, it is a reasonable point of view to say if you reserved 60, you are almost certainly to have reserved enough room to both fix that one day and accomplish leaving a little bit of green there for some public use.
Well, it's going to be a small piece.
Right.
Yeah, as long as you're talking about a small piece, you're talking 10 feet, yeah.
Yeah, well, when I went beyond 10, you acted like it was huge. So I mean, you know.
I got confused when you were talking 70 the whole way here.
No, I was talking just the point there.
So why don't we refer to it two different things? You got the road right away, that would be the 50.
Which I don't think any of us is arguing.
Would be 10 or 10 or 20 of the west end.
Right. And when you do your hand motion like that, it looks like a big piece of the property, but my head tells me another 10 feet there beyond, probably we still haven't touched the buildable area for any potential buyer.
If you look at like some of those lots when we got over the 80 feet, 70 feet to begin with, so you're almost taking a lot.
You're almost what?
You look at some
Size
of
of a
those
lot.
lots, you're almost taking a lot.
For a home.
Those small lots for there. You're going to fix the road, you're saving the road, so you have your survey. And you can see.
Because isn't it in Eastbrook homes, aren't those lots 80? 80 foot wide for some of those homes? Yeah, so this would be almost comparable to a lot where you'd build your home.
But you know, the way that corner's rounded, no one's going to be building, we don't.
No, I know that. I'm just saying, I'm just speaking to your, trying to visualize how large that piece might be.
I may be naive and you tell me, but it seems like if 60 could, all but 60 could potentially be used up in the turning radius, have we accomplished the goal of some small reservation of land? And if we haven't, what's a reasonable amount that we could extend beyond that without harming marketability? We beat this horse, but I think we're getting really close to.
The other way to look at it is if you take that much extra room to fix the road, we're actually going to end up with what Google thinks we've already got here, which is this island between these two lanes.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty soon you'll have this big island in there that'll be a great spot for whatever it is you want to put down there.
Yeah. That's right, that's how Google shows it. Well, there is an amendment to the motion. That would be to add the 10-foot on the northwest corner, and John referred to it as the point of this property, and that was moved and supported. All those in favor of adding the amendment?
I'm not ready to vote. I want to say one more thing. Is anybody, because we're going to vote on this right now, we're going to move on.
We are.
Is anybody not content with the 60 feet, or do you feel like it's adequate?
Oh, I feel as if it's adequate.
I do too.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think if we go any more, then we're going to start taking property up for sale.
Yeah.
That would be my
And
thought.
neither of us knows that for certain, but we're kind of playing with that squishy line. You know?
Right.
And you feel good about that too, John?
I think that's workable.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, are we ready to vote now on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Contrary, the same. The amendment's carried. Now we're back to the main motion as amended, and that was moved and supported. Any further discussion on the main motion as amended? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. That is carried. Okay, thank you. Now we come to our final public comment time. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the board, please state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Michael Bosch, 896 Fairwood Court. Just a continuation of my first segment. Here's what I'd like to suggest for our goal-setting tasks and talks for 2015. One, lower our tax rate back down to 2 mils where it belongs. 2, return the 0.5 mil increase that was imposed on Georgetown residents in 2014. I'm guessing that half a mil was added on kind of in anticipation or preparation for the added expenses of operating the 70,000 square foot township cathedral at 200 Chicago Drive. But that boondoggle got shot down, so how about we return that money? 3, actually listen to residents before planning more grandiose and over-the-top unnecessary projects. 4, don't spend another penny of taxpayer money on anything until the majority of the $5 million that's already been wasted is recouped by selling 200 Chicago Drive, 200 Baldwin, and the ice arena. And I know 200 Baldwin, 200 Chicago Drive, they're in the works, so it's a good thing. We'll see how long we have to wait. Number 5, enter every meeting with a mindset of, what would private business do? What if it was my personal money? We're a township, not a city. 6, instead of increasing all department budgets every year, let's try to reduce them, just like the majority of Georgetown residents have been forced to do with their own personal budgets in this stagnant economy. It's hard to feel good and pat yourselves on the back when you come in at slightly below a bloated budget every year. Obviously, the department budgets are too big. Learn the difference between a need and a want. And then 8, and I think this is the most important, make efficiency, accountability, and transparency the top 3 priorities for 2015. I think those 3 things right there should take care of a lot. And I believe that's about it. A couple comments about Woodcrest Park and grants. I think, is it tied into the grant that we have to have that area around it? Is that part of the DNR? So we just decided not to mow along the edge? Because I had read something about that in previous minutes a couple years ago. I'll do some more research on it. And then to talk about Rosewood Park, the size of a pavilion just based on a one-day event. Really? One-day event? And I think there's advertising involved. I don't know how much it costs them, but the whole point is it's a one-day event. And then Rosewood Park, that's kind of the winter park. I think people were asking for a warming room too. And I know MC Smith, they do fantastic work. But $200,000 for a 750 square foot bathroom, no warming room in there. I think people would be more inclined, happier to see a warming room and restroom, and then walkability. Sidewalks are already around the whole park. To put in a walking trail inside for a 1-block park is just insane. And then I think we should charge for it too. Charge admission to non-residents, just like we used to do at Maplewood. before we spend $1 million on a splash pad and then open it up free for everybody. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Robert Wolven, 3677 Black Creek Drive, Hudsonville, Georgetown Township. I just have three things that have been going through my head while I've been sitting out here listening. I think on the slip and slide that it would have been prudent if some of this was brought up maybe before that crucial vote on the park plan tonight, and maybe it was and it just wasn't acted on. And if a letter or someone would have been here representing the slip and slide, whether it be the City to Shore Realty or the Frody family themselves, we could have had some direction further on that before that vote was even taken. I know it's a good event. I've been to them all. And I also don't think, but I'm not sure that what you did vote on is going to infringe on the area that the tent would need to be put on, because they also have other inflatables and trailers and different concession vehicles, and they'll find room there somewhere. The second thing I think needs to have an answer before we walk out of here tonight, and I know Jim and a lot of you are in favor of the two-way communication, and there's nothing that says after I'm done here that you can't answer me. So it would be nice to have some two-way communication before we leave tonight. Is let's put this backyard chicken thing to rest tonight, at least for how we see it so far. Are people in violation right now that do have chickens? Or are chickens allowed, and some people that do want chickens are going to go ahead and get their chickens? So I know Carol evidently was involved back in May or June. Some people have found in the minutes through one of the committees. And so what came out of that? Where are we at? What's the status? Number three, I didn't go down there today, but a couple days ago, there's still a broken lamp post down there on Baldwin, laying on the ground. And I think the wiring's still hooked up to it. There's some red flags, so maybe something's going on there. It'd be nice to get a status on that. And so the only way we get answers, we can talk all we want. Only our name and addresses go in the minutes. We don't ever get any answers. Not even what I've talked about goes in the minutes for the public to see. So two-way communication, that'll answer these questions.
In regard to the chickens, yes, that is a violation, and if a complaint is registered, they will be cited.
And this,
Yes, not I don't know if they're...
Chicken and farm animals are allowed in agricultural use. They're allowed in rural residential with special use permit.
Right.
They're not covered or allowed in any other zone.
No.
It doesn't mean you can't change the ordinance, but the planning
Did
commission.
you hear what he said, Rob?
LDR, residential.
They're not allowed in any residential zone. They're allowed in agricultural, they're allowed in rural residential. The planning commission, when asked after that proposal came, was asked, and they had no interest in changing it. That's why nothing was pursued.
Right, because it did come to the planning commission, they decided not.
But they didn't want to put the word chicken in there, evidently. It's just covered under agriculture.
Well, there's lots of things that are allowed or not allowed and where they're allowed, but yes, it's covered under as a farm animal allowed in agriculture. So.
Robert, in answer to your sure, they have been emailed probably a month ago, the master plan. I had communication with their office manager, Lori, today, as well as Dan Carlton, and the Frodies were invited to come tonight to give their input on the project.
Okay, is there any other public comment? Okay, then that portion is concluded. Do we have any other comments from any of the board members? Discussion? Anything else?
I would like to see the township consider coming out with some type of an award for the street dance and for slip and slide on behalf of Georgetown Township. A plaque or certificate or something. Just, you know, they've done it on their own. It represents the township very, very well. They've not been recognized by the township at this point, to the best of my knowledge, other than maybe by the chamber. But I just think it's something that we should consider.
If you could refer that to the services committee. Talk with them.
Okay.
Get it on their agenda.
Is that your committee, John?
Yeah.
John and Carol and Chad.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I just had a couple comments. One, we just talked about the working agreement, and I know it wasn't mentioned in the motion itself, but it's not law remember that whole question of full price buyer versus more desirable buyer, et cetera. Are we as a board going to see the listing agreement before it's executed?
That's not how I understood it. I understood
Okay.
that you authorized it, we're good to go.
That's, okay, then for clarification's sake, because of the conversation we had with Colliers, you guys will recall the last two meetings, I think it was, where we'd say, all right, what may be the top price offer may not be the top preference of the township, and normally you sell, I mean, highest and best, you, highest price, right? Is that preserved? Are you charged with the duty of making sure it's preserved in some way, shape, or form? Because it was said, and it
We
was
did that for
understood.
the Kmart parcel, but it has not been said for this parcel. With the Kmart parcel, it has to be compatible with the surrounding properties that are also part of the package if they buy part of it.
Yeah, I didn't limit it to such in my comments, and they didn't seem to balk at that notion, and I wouldn't think it'd be any less important there than it is in the Kmart area. I'm not suggesting we drive buyers away, but I'm saying if we hold that card, we have the ability to go, that's not really what.
Then we're not listing the property. If you
Well,
hold it
let's not go
top.
that, huh?
I mean, then you're struggling to list the property if you're reserving the right at full price and turn it down. You have to at least say what's not gonna be acceptable at that point.
Okay, how did we phrase it with,
It has to be compatible, it can't compete, that it has to work with the other parcels that are around it as part of that project. So,
which is kind of ambiguous, but
yes.
I like similarly ambiguous language. I mean, I thought we had talked about that for both.
You probably don't want it compatible with the other pieces of property around it,
Yeah, right.
would you? I wouldn't.
Can you say compatible with, I mean,
If you're interested in restricting certain uses.
well, I don't think just because we put it up for sale and in a key gateway entrance to our township that we somehow just go, well, whoever comes along with the money, you know? And I thought I understood them to say that they understood that position, that point of view. Does anybody else share that concern? I'll shut up if you don't.
I don't really share that concern
All right.
because I
Anybody
think
else?
you, well, I think you just hit the nail on the head when you said that they understand our position.
That's a different thing, and that's where I'm trapped in the legal side of me.
Okay,
And
spoken like a good lawyer. Yeah, that's good.
does that concern you? Would you say whoever's willing to pay the price, you're good with that? Be it a bank, a gold and silver exchange, or a restaurant? I mean, what?
I don't think that you can restrict.
If the buyer pays full price and meets all the township ordinances, zonings and all that, you have to sell. Am I right?
That's a question. I mean, that's what we
If you
posed.
sign a listing agreement and they pay full price, that's what is proposed, but he's saying I can't sign a listing agreement, is what he's saying, if we had to set restrictions.
I'm saying that just as we reserved under similar language the Kmart property, I would want some similar ambiguous language that would at least give us the ability to pass. You might say we set the price high enough that no one's gonna offer full price, and therefore there is your
You understand though, on the
protection.
Kmart property, if they offer full price and buy the entire parcel, that language doesn't apply.
All right, then they can turn around and sell to whoever they please and circumvent our,
Our protection was the other parcel that we own, if they were to buy one lot.
yeah.
That's what the language was, if they only buy a portion of it, but if they buy all of it, then that doesn't exist there either.
Yeah.
Because that language applies like if they
You
wanted to
don't-
buy Payless shoes.
Yeah.
Right, if they wanted to buy one of the
Right.
lots.
So, and you don't share the concern then, Leon? I mean, whoever wants to buy it, let them buy it.
Well, it's not that you say what you like, but if you're gonna expect them to pay full price, this is the dilemma. Once you sell it to someone, let's just say the use that you wanted to restrict or you wanted, you're willing to pay 1.9 million, but the use that you want is willing to pay 1 million.
Right.
I can turn around the next day and sell it to the other person.
Right.
And you've not guaranteed what you're trying to
Right,
do.
no, you're making a judgment at that point. Is this person gonna circumvent, and are they gonna turn around and capture property at that? Again, like I said, I'll shut up if you guys don't care. I'll guarantee you I'll take an offer less, one nickel less than the asking price if it's somebody that,
Then you might not want to list it, you might want to just have the property be for sale, so you have full control when you're not listing it.
that's kind of what
Or she's
Randall
not
did.
doing another strategy there, and that you could, I mean, frankly, you control it with your listing price.
Somebody wants to buy it for a use you don't like, you're charging them full listing price. So you could just list it at a higher price, but sell it for a lower price to somebody that's got an advantageous use. But they could just buy it for that and turn around
but if you want to think, or if you want to think someone would do so with that intent, and you wouldn't ferret that out, yeah, that's a potential. And look at Granville did, they had that building fall down the middle of town, the DDR, downtown development, DDA, that listed it. Now you can say, well, they held on to it too long or whatever, but they didn't throw it in the hands of a commercial realtor. Probably for that reason. They're going, hey, that's right in the middle of our town. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong as to why they held it, they didn't want to do it themselves, but I thought I understood in asking them the questions that we were keeping some measure of authority to be able at such a key point in our city to say, we can do better than that type of use. All right, so my piece. The only other thing I was going to say is I keep hearing the Bosches refer to waste, and one man's investment is another man's waste, in my opinion, or vice versa. In other words, the property we purchased where Kmart was once located, I've always wanted to see us acquire that property and get rid of that blight. I was not as enthusiastic about putting necessarily a public work there, but I don't see removing that blight from our community as a waste. I've had the thought all along that we would end up turning around and getting value for it. Whether we got the full value or not, we've gotten an intangible, if you will, beyond whatever we're able to sell it for, that I think in the long run can benefit the townships and the residents as a whole. It's just hard. It's hard to characterize. It's oversimplistic to characterize the expenditures we don't like as waste. I don't think there's any of us up here who is determined to waste the township's money. And I don't think, and I'd say this to Mr. Bosch, I mean, why don't we reduce the millage down to 1? How about a half? I mean, you too have a point where you would say, we can't go below that. We need to run operations here. So we all have a point where we say, we need tax dollars. The fact that we're well below what the voters approved, which is already incredibly, lower than any of the surrounding communities. The fact that we've proven in the past this board will cut even beyond what the public has approved shows that we're willing to go either direction, quite frankly, within the discretionary authority given by the voters some years ago. And I don't think there's anything magical about the benchmark of 2.4 to say, well, if it's not 2.4, you're all wasting our money. 2.4 was arrived at when it was previously at 2.5, 6, 7, 8, wherever we began with that cutting process. And so I don't think, and I'll get off my soapbox in return here, but I don't think it's fair to say that unless you're cutting and returning money, you're wasting our township dollars. I do think that if we don't shore up some of the investment in the community, that over time we can lose property value, we can lose residents, and we can, so we're growing, yeah, and we might continue to grow. But we want to grow, I think, in a way that we can all be proud of. And sometimes that requires investment. And in making those decisions, it's not easy. And I appreciate the watchdog nature, not only of the community, but of the board. And we'll do our level best, and with your input, to be judicious in the expenditure of funds. But I guess I take a little umbrage to the idea that any time we want to spend money, that somehow we're wasting tax dollars. And even to the notion that, and I was one who, I didn't make these pledges that you cited. I was in favor of the millage being ticked up a little bit last year. I think it was appropriate. I think it's useful for the long-term goals of what we need to do in the community. We've heard as many voices as we have yours here in times past when you weren't here, saying just the opposite, saying, how am I supposed to keep my son or daughter in this township when you want to invest adequately? Be that about the library, be that about walkability, be that about whatever else. And so we, when you're sitting in this seat, get caught in a crossfire that you don't necessarily see. We hear from you, we hear from the watchdogs of conservation, but we also get pilloried to some degree by those who say, you're not making this any place that my family's going to want to stay, and they're all going to the other side of town or out of town somewhere else. So it's a hard balancing act, and I don't mean to be overly defensive. I guess I just want to say, I appreciate input, but please at least give some head nod to the motives of the board and not mean to to waste the township dollars.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Anyone else? Any other comments?
I'm just going to add to that. I am just proud to live in this township. Everything is paid for. This building's paid for, the seniors paid for, the ice arena's paid for, the Kmart property's paid for, 200 Baldwin's paid for. We have money in the bank. We plan on building a senior center at one point, and we now have the funds to do that. And guess what? We don't have to borrow. We don't have to raise taxes. The money's set aside, and much due to Dan's hard work and budgeting and keeping a tight ship, we're able to build, and the seniors deserve it, and it's going to happen.
And I tag onto that, say, but into the ears of someone like the Bosch's, what they hear is, well, if you have excess money, why don't you give it back to us? And my point is, you have to save for capital expenditure, and yes, if there's perpetually excess monies, it isn't that, oh, this is ours. I mean, we recognize, as much as we might praise Dan or future boards or employees here, we also praise those who pay the taxes, which is all of us, right? So we're all a part of it. And there are times, and we've shown it in the past, where you need to give the money back and cut rates. There are times when you see things coming that you haven't done, be it a library that sits out here at 10,000 or 15,000 square feet that's overcrowded and not properly utilized, and there are just things that we all know have to be planned for, and rather than, and I see you shaking your head, and you can take the position, that's fine, but I'm giving my point of view because I've heard yours over and over again. And
Do we have metrics for that? Since
No.
it's overcrowded?
No, let's keep with the discussion with the board.
Very well, but that's enough said. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Motion. Moved and supported to adjourn. We stand adjourned.